focusing the rest of our summer in the book of Hebrews. You may remember that last October we did a deep dive into Hebrews with a series called Not Listening to Shame. And we finished off the series about 3/4 of the way through the letter. And so we will be picking up around about where we left off. I'll do a bit of a little brief recap for us here this morning. But for those of you who may want a more thorough refresh, or for those of you who perhaps missed the series, the podcast is available for you to listen to, and all the sermons are on there if you'd like. So, the letter to the Hebrews is speaking to a group of Jewish Christians in first century Rome. As we could probably imagine, there were very particular challenges in being a Christian in first century Rome. And so this letter addresses these challenges being faced by this community. Being a Christian in this context meant that life was lived as an outcast, finding oneself relegated to the very ragged edges of society. As such, there were real tensions in this group of believers as they grappled with the temptations to abandon their beliefs and their values in order to feel at home, to be accepted within the larger society. And so the author of this letter is calling for these Jesus followers to hold fast to their faith. Now, what we shouldn't read into this idea of holding fast to your faith is that Hebrews is simply offering us another vision of the good life, another pitch to work harder, to dig deeper. That if they could just turn inward on themselves and try, then they could and should forge their own paths forward. Instead, what Hebrews is offering us is a Savior who has rescued us from living for ourselves and our future. This letter reminds us that Jesus has dismantled the systems by which human worth is counted. Hebrews encourages the Jesus followers to not give up meeting with one another, to not give up encouraging one another, spurring each other on. You see, the world will try and convince us that the only story we can have faith in is our own story. And we must respond by reminding each other that there is a greater story which we are all being drawn into. See, Hebrews is a message for those who believe that God has spoken, that he is faithful to his promises, and that we can trace his goodness through the whole of human history, and that he has fully revealed himself in his Son, who is his first and final word to us. Hebrews is for those who want to know God deeper and more fully, not out of a naive, wishful thinking, but from a place of deep faith and of deep hope. And Hebrews is written for those of us who need to be reminded that whatever challenges we may come up against, the radical confession of our faith can withstand the pressures of our circumstances. Because faith for the people of God has always been between the seen and the unseen, both the tangible and the hidden things of this world. The faith which we profess is that which looks backwards and allows for the hope that looks forward. That despite all the observable evidence to the contrary, we know there is more of the story that we cannot see. This is what it means to be a people of faith. Faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. In God's covenant with Abraham, he promised as many offspring as there were stars to be counted in the sky. And if you've ever tried to count the stars here in Calgary with the light pollution of a large city, that might not seem like such a big deal. Try to count them tonight. You may find a couple dozen. But we know that there are more stars in the sky than we can see. And under the Middle Eastern sky, Abraham was maybe able to count a couple thousand stars, which is definitely much more impressive, but still not the full picture of the promise. There is a certain hiddenness in promise. There are those things in which we can see, but also things that remain unseen for a time. The full revelation of which we eagerly wait for. As people living in the 21st century in North America, cultural context, I think one could say without getting in too much trouble that we are not that great at waiting. We are not a particularly patient people. We are a high demand culture that likes immediate results, which has made us into very good producers and consumers. You just have to walk into a Costco this afternoon to see that we should have already been shopping for Halloween. And we are just around the corner from starting to think about Christmas. See, if we want to have our best vacation, if we want to have our perfect holiday and the right fall fashion, then we better stay ahead of the game. And this, of course, has had implications for the church. Faith has become about my experience, about how I feel after a Sunday gathering. And when this happens, this turns the church from a people of faith to producers and consumers of faith. And then our primary goal for gathering is reduced to what I can get out of it. Faith is reduced to a feeling. And so what do we do when the product we have consumed doesn't make us feel the way we wanted to feel? Well, of course, we do what good consumers do, and we pick someplace else that is going to give us the product that we want. See, consumer faith, it allows us to pick away at the parts that don't obviously make sense to us, the places that seem out of place in a world that says we should have the kind of faith we want, a faith that carries the shape of our own individual hopes and dreams. But for the people of God, faith has never been a solo act, never internally cultivated and harnessed to use for a person's own desired outcome. Ephesians 2:8 says, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God." We are not the sources of our own faith, because faith has never been primarily about human action, but rather God's action. God is the prevenient actor, the one who is before all things. Faith is our grace. It is our gift. It isn't the result of fulfillment, but what happens in us between promise and fulfillment. Like for Abraham and Sarah and the generations after them, faith is what a people cling to as displaced wanderers, longing and searching for a heavenly country. And so to be God's people is to be a people of holy longing. Frederick Buechner says this: by faith we understand, if we are to understand it at all, that the madness and lostness we see all around us and within us are not the last truth about the world, but only the next to last truth. Madness and lostness are the results of terrible blindness and tragic willfulness, which whole nations are involved in, no less than you and I are involved in them. Faith is the eye of the heart, and by down beneath the face of things. By faith, we struggle against all odds to be able to see that the world is God's creation, even so. It is He who made us, and not we ourselves, made us out of His peace to live in peace, out of His light to dwell in the light, out of His love to be above all things loved and loving. World. Most of us here don't know what it is to be displaced from our homes. Many of us here do not know what it feels like to actually be considered a person on the margins of society. This may not be our daily reality, but it is the daily reality for our neighbors. Whether those are neighbors next door or the neighbors in the shelters and on the street corners of Calgary, or refugees fleeing to this country for safety and a better life, or for those whose humanity is being violated in our borders or in others. Being a people of faith and a people of hope is to recognize the strangeness of this place and long for a better country, the holy dwelling place we were made for, not just for ourselves, but for the other. Being a faithful people means resisting the false contentment that guarantees our silence. To be a people of faith is to be filled with holy longing. In our gospel text, Jesus says, "Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom." See, the kingdom that we are longing for, it is ours. It has already been given to us. We don't need to grasp because nothing is being held back from us. He is giving us all things, seen and unseen. And so we can release that which possesses our hearts, our stuff, our status, our ambition, all the things that we identify ourselves with outside of Jesus. Goodness, we are invited to be a strange people. Because make no mistake, up against the empire, the faith we are called to makes no sense at all. The kingdom will always seem foolish through the lens of empire. It is the foolishness of the cross ever in our sight. It is the weakness, the vulnerability of God that has defeated the powers and principalities of death. And to this, Jesus says, do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. See, Jesus is consistently directing his followers to see the strangeness of the kingdom, to behold its bizarre nature. In today's reading, Jesus uses the standard Roman household as a setting of a parable, giving a picture of how it is to be when he returns. As one would expect in a Roman household, the servants are waiting up for the master, who is yet to return from a wedding banquet. And they wait for him expectantly, their lamps burning, ready to serve him. In their eagerness, they open the door as soon as he knocks, ready to receive him. And then the curveball, when Jesus says, truly I tell you, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them. The master is the servant. It's a banquet scene, a meal for the faithful servants, where all the social and political norms are upended, where all expectations of his arrival will be challenged. We are a people of holy longing, who on behalf of the world wait eagerly in our hope of Jesus' return. We long for a heavenly country, for his will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. And in a few moments, we will sing those words together. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. This is the story we have been drawn into, that heaven and earth will be one and the same, that before us we can observe the things of this earth and hold in confidence our hope of the hidden things of heaven. And that somehow, in this spectacular mystery of it all, those two places, heaven and earth, they come together for us at the table. You see, we have not been waiting without him. He has given us himself to see, to taste, to touch. Dietrich Bonhoeffer says, as sacrament, Christ is present to us in the sphere of our body's tangible nature. Here he is by our side as a creature, in our midst as a brother among brothers and sisters. As sacrament, he is the restored creation because it is the body of the risen Christ. As sacrament, he is the restored creation of our bodily existence. He is the new creature, and in such a way that he is the human being humiliated in bread and wine. Because he is the new creature in the bread and wine, Therefore, bread and wine are not the memory of his death. Bread and wine are the new creation. Bread and wine are by nature and reality the new food for the person who receives them in faith. Faith for the people of God has always been between the seen and the unseen, both tangible and hidden things. And in a moment, we're going to come to the table together, and we will do so by the gift of faith, for the sake of one another and on behalf of the world, in hope all would hear the invitation that is being offered to them. In faith, through bread and wine, we will share in new creation together. We will taste of the new food, of the new life. And so let us be a holy people of longing, confident in what it is to hope for, and confident in what it is we hope for, and led by the gift of faith buried within us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.